Hello. In my last video, I was talking about the causes of anxiety, and I was saying that one of the biggest causes of anxiety is worrying about the perceptions of others and being afraid of the perceptions of others. And I was saying that if we can relate to this as a cause of your anxiety, we can start the process of resolving that issue. And I think even though it's going to take a while to resolve it, we can't resolve it to flick the switch. But where I'd like to start is with the dichotomy of control. And the dichotomy of control states that some things are within our power and others are not. What is within our power is our opinions, motivation, desires and aversions. In a word, whatever is up to us, whatever is our own doing. And what is not within our power is body, reputation, office, and property. In a word, things that are not our own doing. Now, when I heard that when I was first introduced to the dichotomy of control, I said, the first thing I did was say, oh no way, sure, my body is up to me, this is up to me. I disputed it, like I said, this is up to me, that's up to me. Like if I eat well and I train and I go to the gym, then I'm in control of my body. I get to determine whether I'm fat, slim, everything else. But the way it works is, what is within my control is the choices I make in relation to my body. So for instance, I can decide to eat well, I can decide to go to the gym, I can decide not to drink, and I can make choices in relation to my body, but I can't say I have no I can't determine whether I get sick or not get sick. I can't determine my bowel movements. For instance, like I can determine whether I drink tea at night or not. If I drink tea at night, yes, I'll be up all night going to the jacks. But I can't determine my bowel movements, and I can't determine whether I get sick. But basically, all I can do is my best, and then accept the consequences of my actions, or leave it up to the universe, whatever fate may decide. So basically, all I can do is my best, and accept the consequences, or accept whatever happens, whatever fate throws at me. But and that's why what's within our control is my choices in relation to my body. So that applies to that's how the dichotomy of control works. But it takes quite a lot to understand it, and that's why we're going to stay coming back on it a few times, and stay coming back to it, and stay revisiting it, because a lot of these things with Buddhism and Stoicism is people take things like the dichotomy of control and they make affirmations out of them. The Serenity prayer is based on the dichotomy of control. Give me the strength to change the things I can and accept the things I can't. But people sort of roll that off their tongue without actually looking deep below the surface of and actually focusing what is within my control and what is not within my control. So that's what we're going to do with the dichotomy of control. Throughout this whole journey, we're going to stay revisiting it in relation to what we're talking about, and looking at exactly what is within our control and what is not within our control. So for the purpose of this video, and in order to deal with the perceptions of others, we look at what is within our control. And what is not within our control is their perceptions of others. We can't control how others think or how others perceive us. We can't control this. All we can control is ourselves. How we say, for instance, if we want to create an impression, we can dress to create an impression, but outside that, we have no control over how we're going to be perceived. But everything is subjective, and I'll tell you about the story about your man with the ass. Just to give you an example. There was this man and his son, and they set out on a journey with an ass. And the first town they came to, when they were set out on the journey, the young lad said to the father, "So up on the ass there, Daddy. You ride the ass. You're a good bit older than me. You ride the ass." So when they're going through the first town, the people were all saying, "Oh, look at your man riding the ass and making the poor old son walk." So the people were all saying this, and the father and the son heard of it. The son was mortified. So the father then said, no, I'll get off the ass, you ride the ass. So the next town they were going through, everybody was saying, oh, look at the father look at the son riding the ass and making the son walk. And the son was mortified sitting on the ass. So, and the father then, listening to all the people, the next town they came to, the two of them hopped up on the ass. And all the people started to say, oh, look at the two fuckers up on the ass. And the poor old ass cripple carrying the two of them, he had spirited walk. So the two of them got off and walked, and the next town they came to, everybody was saying as they walked through, oh, look at the two fools walking, and what was the point of bringing the ass? So the point is, everything is subjective. You can't please everybody. They're going to form their own opinions. So the best thing you can do is just live life according to your true nature. And basically don't give a bollocks what you think. If you're living to your true nature and your intent is good, and good or bad is subjective, like it's relative. So if you believe that your intent is good, in other words, if it aligns with your goals, we'll come back on that at a later date. But if it aligns with your goals, basically, you needn't care what you think. But that's a process. Getting to the stage where you don't care what you think is a process. And part of getting to that process is another part of the dichotomy of control. Our desires are within our control. So we can control what we want and our aversions, what we don't want, what we fear, what we don't fear, and what we don't want. We can control this. So it's within our power to not want things. And if we're self-sufficient and we don't want anything off anybody, and we don't expect anything off anybody, we'll come to expectations at a later date as well, and deal with that as well. But if we don't want anything off anybody, and we don't expect anything off anybody, we absolutely don't have to give a shit what they think. And that's a great place to be. But again, that's a process that we'll work on. We'll work on that as we go. And then another thing that we can work on as part of this process, in order to get over that worrying about the perceptions of others, for those of you who are brave enough to do it, that ever since the Dark Ages, man has understood that suffering, if faced without fear, is our passport to freedom. Now, what I mean by that is I'll explain more at a later date about suffering and involuntary suffering. It's sort of like an inoculation. You know, like the way the vaccines work. If you subject yourself fearlessly to suffering, you sort of inoculate yourself against it. You face your fears and you lose all fear. An example of that is when I was in Turkey, for instance, I used to walk around barefoot. And the reason I used to walk around barefoot was for two reasons. Number one was involuntary suffering. You get used to suffering, like you get used to being barefoot, and you lose all fear of having nothing and being barefoot. And then once you subject yourself to this humiliation, for instance, once you get over the fear of people looking at you and saying, "Oh, look at your man with no shoes," like, you know what I mean? He must be poor as shit. He must have not. And some people used to come up to you and say, "Where's your shoes? You know shoes?" And you say, "I have shoes. I just don't wear them." And you say, "No shoes." And then once I got over the humiliation of walking around with no shoes, I got my neck hard enough. I used to walk into the Grand Bazaar, into the main shopping area with no shoes. And I remember the first day I did this, I used to go in there every day, like, and sit down and you know, look at the people walking by. I was setting up a business. I was doing business, trying to set up a business in there, selling everything that was in the bazaar. I'm not finished with that project yet, but I'm coming back to it. But I walked in there when I decided, once I got used to walking around with no shoes, I decided I'd fit into the Grand Bazaar with no shoes. I went in and sat down, and this guy comes up to me and says, "No, you can't sit there." I said, "Why can't I sit here? I'm sitting here for the last 6 months." And he started to say, "Oh no, you can't sit there, move along, you know, more or less." And I said, "Oh, fuck yourself. You know what I mean? What's it got to do with you? What's it got to do with you? I'll see here all I want. You know what I mean? More or less, I was getting rude because I had no shoes on. But once I go over that experience, again, it builds my resilience, like, and it builds my resilience, and I did other things as well to build my fear of being afraid of the perceptions of others. But you got to the point where you absolutely don't give a bollocks what they think. Like Diogenes used to whenever he had a student, he made one of them walk behind him with a bottle tied to a string and walk through the square with a bottle tied to a string. But your man got upset and threw down the string and sort of said, here, this, you know what I mean? And he wasn't able to get over the perceptions of others. But that was his first lesson. Some of the cognitive behavioural therapists make people walk along and walk with a banana. What I used to do as well was I used to go skinny dipping. I decided to go skinny dipping down at the beach. Now in Muslim culture, like that doesn't really, they're not into nudity at all. Like they're very reserved in that way. So me skinny dipping down at the beach was a huge like if you were worried about the perceptions of others, that was a big boundary to push, if you know what I mean. But once you go over these boundaries and you push these boundaries, like that's what I'm saying, throw yourself into these. If you're brave enough and you want to really get beyond worrying about the perceptions of others, subject yourself to humiliation and subject yourself, like push the boundaries of it. Like once you realise that that this is the cause of your anxiety, what I'm saying is maybe push the boundaries of this. Do things like that push the boundaries of it. And once you face these fears, like walking around barefoot or going skinny dipping, you sort of, once you push these boundaries, you can get to a point where, I do other things as well, I'll tell you about a later day, but once you push these boundaries, you can actually reach a point where you absolutely don't care what they think you. As they say, as Epictetus told us, like, our reputation is not up to us, and when we get more into the metaphysics and the understanding of the universe, you get a better understanding of that, but our reputation is not up to us. All we can worry about is ourselves, and all we can control is ourselves, and that's all we should worry about. But as I say, it's a process, and as I say, when we get more into this, and we establish our own values and define our own morality, you can learn to overcome these fears. Well, as I say, the main thing is to identify it as a fear, start working towards maybe pushing the boundaries of it and overcoming this fear. As I say, it's a process that, and we'll stay coming back to the dichotomy of control to overcome this fear. But that's, as I say, a start in the journey of resolving our anxiety. And as I say, if we identify that as a cause, there's some suggestions as to how we can start working and overcoming it. Yeah, so tomorrow we'll look at another cause of anxiety, and as I say, we'll stay coming back around on the anxiety until we resolve it. It's a journey. So I'll talk to you tomorrow. Bye.